Ready? I've asked Tom Block to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the February 16, 2017 meeting of the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. My name is Bob Archer. I currently serve as chair of the commission and represent District 3 alongside Commissioner Shelley Bueller, who represents District 1, and Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Let's get started. First item, please.
Proclamations, presentations. Number 1, presentation on the Aquafest event to be held February 24th, 25th, and 26th, 2017.
Good morning. My name is Ann White, and I thank you for letting me speak a little bit today. I just wanted to update you from our first Aquafest that was last year. We thought it was a wonderful success. We loved being here in Topeka, and coming up for this year's our 20th anniversary, and just some of the growth even over the 2 years now that we've been working in Topeka. In Wichita, we had like 10,000 was our average kind of attendees. Last year, we brought in 13,000 people to the Expo Center, and we really feel like we're going to have upwards of 15,000 there this year. We have over 180 vendors. We've been sold out for several months, and we have 30 on a waiting list. So a lot of people wanting to get in that cannot get in. We had 3 food trucks last year, and this year we have 10. We had 9 sponsors when we were in Wichita, and we currently have 47. We started out with 32 pages in the program from there, and we're up to 80 pages, which our publisher says is the second largest program of all the horse fairs that she does. And she was turning people down. They were, wanting so bad to get in there and publicize. The stall barn is sold out. It has 220 stalls, and again, we're turning down horses, turning down breeds, and people that are wanting to come and showcase what they do in their discipline or the sport. So we just feel like we are out of room. We need more room. We want to encourage the expansion and renovation of the Expo Center and invite you all to come out and see. I don't know if you got to come last year, but I did bring some passes, so an extra, so you can bring a guest. We are new this year, having a live concert on Friday night, so we will have a dance, and we're trying to do that to get people to come in for the weekend early. Again, trying to get more heads in beds, people to stay over, so that's a new thing we're going to try. We will continue with our ranch rodeo on Saturday and Sunday. We have a new youth working cow competition added for Sunday. We've added a farriers contest. We have farriers from all over the country that are going to come and do that. So again, same old as last year, lots of shopping, lots of dancing, lots of kid activities. Kids 12 and under are free this year for our 20th, and we encourage you to come out and see what we've got going on. I think Marty is going to come up and talk about the economic impact of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, I'm supposed to give you 6 copies. Who do I give it to? I think there's 6 there. Why don't you count those and make sure? Okay. Yes, there is. I did those at 6 o'clock this morning without coffee. All right. And yeah, each one of the commissioners get their own very special Aquafest Kansas Horse Council.
Thanks, Marty.
And I apologize for my lack of voice. I have about, 2/3 of all Shawnee Countyans have right now, I think. Everybody seems to be getting this stuff. But I don't think I'm contagious, so that's the good news. My name is Marty Bloomquist, and I'm a lifetime Shawnee Countyan. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a voter. I think the election commissioner still has my original voting registration from when I was 18. The day I turned 18, I went to the election office and signed up to vote. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about Equifest. I've been to it in Wichita, but when I found out it was coming to the Expo Center, I really got excited. I think I'm a person that I'm kind of a glass is half full as opposed to half empty, and I can see huge opportunities for this event, as well as all of the other events that are taking place in the livestock areas at the Expo Center. What I included here is, that I just handed out to you guys, is a economic impact study that I did for the mayor and the city council last year when they were wondering how important the Expo Center project was to Topeka and to Shawnee County. And I'm pretty conservative. I've worked 20 years in budget and fiscal management and finance. I've worked under 4 different governors and was asked to work under a 5th one, but I was just too tired. But anyway, I did this, and I went through and extrapolated using the American Quarter Horse Association formula for economic impact. I took all of the 2015 livestock-related events at the Expo Center and plugged them into this formula. I had to talk to each show director. And about 2/3 of all of these show directors, which, by the way, I'm very impressed with every one of them. They knew all of their statistics from their shows. But about 2/3 of them said, you know, if this expansion and renovation takes place, we could bring you at least one more big show. But right now, we can't grow anymore. You're as big as I mean, we're you know, going kind of busting out of the seams, I guess. But and I think Ann alluded to that too several times, that Equifest is going to take up the entire Expo Center. It's going to be everywhere we can probably stuff it, and we've got a waiting list. We had a waiting list last year, so we've got at least 30 vendors from a lot of different states that want to come in and do business here that can't, because short of putting up a circus tent, we're not able to bring them in. So I did not calculate, Equifest isn't on this 2015 list because we had it in 2016. But I did just put a pencil to some of the information that we got from Equifest from last year, and we don't have all of it yet. And I am so embarrassed. This is such a conservative figure, but being a budget and finance person, I have to be ultra conservative, but the economic impact of this last February's Equifest in 2016 to Shawnee County and the city of Topeka was $3 million. And like I say, I know it's more than that, but I'm just super ultra conservative on that estimate. So anyway, I plan on doing another one of these to calculate what the benefits were for 2016 at the Expo Center. I was one of the 39,000 voters that voted for the sales tax package. And actually, I was here at Shawnee County when we put together the very first sales tax question. And that was pretty exciting. We did a dog and pony show all over the county and showed people maps and things of all the bridges and things. Bridges were a real item. Of course, bridges still are, and I was very glad that we were getting the Willard Bridge done. And but there were a lot of bridges in Shawnee County at the time that school buses or emergency vehicles couldn't cross. And a lot of kids had to ride a bus 9 extra miles in order to go to school out in the rural areas. So I was part of that first effort to put the very first sales tax issue on the ballot, and was really happy because since then it's been very popular, and it's done some really great things for our county and our city, our whole community, and Northeast Kansas, really. So anyway, if you have any questions, ask me, or give me a holler somewhere, somehow. And anyway, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, too. It's
You're welcome.
certainly appreciated. Next item, please. Did you have a question?
No,
I'm sorry.
I just didn't know if there was anybody else that was, and just the whole impact of Equifest, and just appreciate everybody coming down here to make sure we know about it, and including young people here, just even on the front row.
Not
Yes,
to put you on the spot, but do you just want to give us your name and where do you go to school, and just step up to the podium, if that's okay with your dad? Absolutely. Okay.
I'm
Good.
I'm Angeline Salisetti, and I go to school at North Fairview Elementary.
Great. Thanks for being here
Good,
this
thanks
morning.
for being here.
I just forgot to talk about one thing. We also did carriage rides at the mall last week to kick off Equifest. So that's just another show how this city of Topeka has engaged this activity and is partnering up. So many businesses are partnering, and we went into a partnership with the mall, and I think that was very well received. We gave over 100 carriage rides that afternoon, and so I think that was a lot of great exposure, too.
Again, thank you. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Number 2, 2017 Value Notice Overview.
I asked for Mr. Baumann to present this again to make sure that the public was noticed up, and I also wanted to make sure that the public understood the new schedule, how difficult it's been, and how hard our appraisal office has been working to meet the new deadline. So go ahead, Mr. Baumann.
I appreciate that. Steve Baumann, Shawnee County Appraiser. And I do appreciate the second opportunity because I did not recognize how hard our staff has worked to meet this early deadline. And so we are sending out, or we did send out valuation notices yesterday. We sent them out normally. We sent them out the 1st of March. We sent them out 2 weeks early this year, mainly due to pending legislation that moved our certification date up to June 1st from June 15th. So to move that up 2 weeks, as well as with tax-led legislation, it's provided some additional challenges for the county clerk's office to get their work done. So we're going to try and certify even earlier this year. So I'm going to give you kind of a high-level overview of our values and the process that we're going through with mailing these notices. We've had some positive market indicators this year, again, so our indications are that our market is continuing to improve. So we've had 223 new home permits this year compared to 209 the last 2 years.
And that's countywide, including city limits, right?
This is countywide. This is all Shawnee County.
Okay. Thank you.
Sales, we've had an increase of sales to 3,925 sales from the previous year's 3,746. So these are all indications that our market is continuing to improve, get better, and be healthy. So it's good news to the property owners of Shawnee County. So when we look at this, those sales by month, do this to help show if there's any anomalies in 1 month, because we could have, you know, a 1 month surge that would not be illustrative of the entire year. But this is pretty consistent throughout the entire year. You can see the summer months are the most popular in every year. So with that, our overall value indications, overall we're expecting our commercial and our residential market values to increase about 2.3%. Not everyone's going to see an increase. There are quite a few properties that will be going down as well, or not changing. And GIS assisted us in creating this map of the Shawnee County area, and this shows our trends that we're experiencing. Most of the counties covered in a 2% blue. So most of the county has a 2% increase coming. There's dark purple and kind of a light purple. Those are 4% and 5% increases. Not very many of them. A few years ago, when our market was going strong, 2007, that was our norm. We're still working on getting back up to that, but at least we are seeing increases now that would indicate a healthy market.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner.
Mr. Baumann, looking at this map, and am I correct in saying that there is no real value change for the majority of the city of Topeka? Is that?
That's a good question, and not exactly. This is an overall trend indication. A lot of the city of Topeka will not be seeing an increase. It's going to depend on specific areas inside of there, and those are fairly small and not easily to identify on this map.
Okay.
I can create you one, though, that would help illustrate that.
But in general, it appears
Correct.
within the city limits, there has not been an appreciable increase in value.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
For a good chunk of it.
Okay.
And that the majority of our growth, the highest growth, appears to be just to the north of the city of Topeka.
Yes.
All right. I just want to make sure that I'm reading the map correctly.
Yeah, thank you.
And some of that's going to be catch up because maybe they were experiencing some increase the prior year, but it didn't get recognized, and so we're catching up to that. Overall, it's probably about a 2% increase. So, other positive indications: Sunflower Realtors Association, Topeka Realtors Association, has been indicating in their reports some positive trend information as well. Days on market has declined. I think we're down to like median of 23, 24 days on market, which is very quick to sell a property, getting about 98% of the asking price, which is very good. Normally, it's around 92, or it has been around 90, 92% of original asking price. And sales volume has been up about 14% over the year. So, very good information. For residential new construction, we added about $52.9 million this year. Commercial new construction, we've added about $35 million. Out of that $35 million, we're probably not going to see that remain by the time certification comes because there's economic development. I believe there's a few churches in there, and those will end up coming back off. And we'll try and stay in contact with Betty Gruner and make sure that everything's recognized moving forward. So our 2017 change of value notices were mailed yesterday, February 15th, and we only sent those out to properties that had a change in value or class. This process has saved us, the taxpayers of Shawnee County, about $175,000 over the last 6 years. We kind of created that out of a necessity when the market declined. Needed to find ways to help save our budget. So, and it's actually proved to be a pretty successful venture, in my opinion. And we're sent out just over 41,000 notices. About 80% of those are going to have an increase. Now, as part of sending out valuation notices to only those people where their values or classification has changed, we're going through some extra steps to make sure that we don't leave anyone out. So if a person did not receive a valuation notice but would like one, they can go to our website at www.snco.us/AP, and they can print a evaluation notice directly from there or view it. They can call our taxpayer assistance line. It's open now. It's 75232-4461. If they want a notice, we'll send it by email, regular mail. We can fax them. They can come pick it up. Or they can send an email to me to request one at snappraiser@snco.us. In fact, I received an email yesterday from a gentleman, and Commissioner Cook, you had mentioned, what if a person is buying a property? Will they get a notice? He's supposed to close on his March 31st, and he was wondering if he would get a notice, and I explained no, but I can give you one now. So we were able to do that, and I did ask if we were close, and he said very close, so that's good news too.
And that's maybe,
Yes, Commissioner.
your percentages of how close you are measured by the state of Kansas, aren't they?
That is correct. Well, and us as well, and our appraisal industry, IAAO.
And how does Shawnee County do?
We do very well. It's our median ratio. I mean, there's several factors to help tell us how well we're doing. It's median ratio, median sales ratio, coefficient of dispersion. That will tell us how tight those values are. But we have to be within 90 to 110% of market value, and we're sitting right at 98. So
A person should have some degree of confidence that the Shawnee County appraisal is accurate of what their home may be worth.
I think so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
The last day to file an appeal will be March 17th. It's 30 days after the date we mail them. So that's an important date for people to know, because that date has moved up. You do not need a notice in order to appeal. You can call our taxpayer assistance line, 232-4461, and we will schedule the appeal. We can schedule appeals based off of an email to our office at this informal level. Currently, our appraisers are answering those phone lines right now, because at the beginning of the valuation notice process, usually about that first week, we get a lot of questions, and so we're able to answer a lot of those questions without setting an appeal and satisfy the needs of the people without making them come into our office. After that first week, they'll still be able to call in and get their questions answered, but we'll have our clerical staff answering phone lines to schedule those appeals. And then for any property owner that misses this deadline, they will still be able to pay under protest in December when they get their taxes paid, or the second half, May 10th, when they pay their taxes at that point. I believe that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions?
I do not.
Okay. I just wanted to thank you and recognize the appraisal staff. It has a tremendous history of accuracy as far as the sales ratios go. And I know that with the new scheduling coming up 2 weeks earlier than normal, it's just been a grind. But I wanted to thank you and your staff for the hard work and excellent work that you're doing for the taxpayers.
I appreciate
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item, please.
Item 3, consent agenda.
Move approval of the one item.
Second.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
New business, A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Mr. Chairman, this morning we have vouchers that total $1,200,429.61. The highlights out of those vouchers are payments for the Department of Corrections with our Horizon Healthcare holding accounts with the state of Kansas, health insurance, payments for information technology improvements, and payments for the solid waste department. I do not have any questions regarding the vouchers, and I would move for their approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the vouchers by Commissioner Cook and seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Number 2, consider correction orders.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the correction orders by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item B, Kansas Expo Center. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-52, 2017 with SMG and Emma Rupke for rental of Heritage Hall on April 28, 2018.
Good morning, Commissioners. Les Crooks, Kansas Expo Center. This contract is for a wedding reception, so they may join the rest of us in the joys of holy matrimony. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'll move approval of the contract.
I'll second, but just note that the reason the contract is here is it is outside of the time frame for the SMG.
Right.
And so we would typically not see a contract for the reception hall rental, but because of where it falls, that's why it's being approved by the commission.
Correct.
Exactly.
And congratulations, Emma.
Yes.
Motion made to approve the contract by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries 3-0. Thank you. Thank you, Les. Next item.
Item C, Public Works Solid Waste. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-53, 2017 with Cook, Platt, and Strobel Engineers, PA, for design and construction engineering services for the Southwest 109th Street over tributary to Wakarusa project at a cost of $49,000 with funding from the Special Bridge Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block with Public Works and Solid Waste. I don't know, all these items on the agenda today are all very similar. They're design contracts. I don't know if you would like to do them all individually or do them all at once, but in any event, this is follow-up to an item that was on the January 5th agenda in which we were going out for design services for several bridge projects in the county. We went out for requests for proposals. We received proposals back. We received just 2 proposals from 2 different firms, and so we split the work up amongst the 2 firms, which we have used quite a bit in the past several or many years, ever since I've been here. They both do fine work. There will actually be 2 more contracts coming from Finney and Turnipseed in a subsequent meeting, but these 5 items are for 5 of the bridges. But in any event, we recommend, except we've worked with both firms, they both do good work, so we would recommend approval for the contracts.
If there's not objection, I'd like the county clerk to read all 5 items and then vote on them together, or would you prefer each individual?
I have no objection to doing that.
Okay.
Me neither.
Okay. Number 2, consider authorization and execution of contract C-54, 2017 with Cook, Platt, and Strobel Engineers, PA, for design and construction engineering services for the Southeast California Avenue over tributary to Wakarusa project at a cost of $48,000 with funding from the Special Bridge Fund. Number 3, consider authorization and execution of contract C-55, 2017 with Cook, Platt, and Strobel Engineers, PA, for design and construction engineering services for the Southeast California Avenue over tributary to Wakarusa project at a cost of $45,000 with funding from the Special Bridge Fund. Number 4, consider authorization and execution of contract C-56, 2017 with Finney and Turnipseed Transportation and Civil Engineering, LLC, for design and construction engineering services for the Northwest Button Road over tributary of Half Day Creek project at a cost of $35,000 with funding from the Special Bridge Fund. And number 5, consider authorization and execution of contract C-57, 2017 with Finney and Turnipseed Transportation and Civil Engineering, LLC, for design and construction engineering services for the Northwest Dondy Lane over Breakneck Branch of Half Day Creek project at a cost of $37,000 with the funding from the Special Bridge Fund.
I'll make a motion to approve the contracts documented as items C1 through 5 on the agenda.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0.
right,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much, Tom. Next item, please.
Item D, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C58, 2017 with CFS Engineers for design and construction documents for the construction and installation of a prefabricated pedestrian footbridge to be placed over a cove of Westlake Pond in Gage Park on the north section of the Gage Park Fitness Trail at a cost of $16,400 with funding from the National Recreational Trails Grant and a 20% match from the Parks and Recreation Building Maintenance Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Knight, Parks and Recreation. This is really an exciting day for me. I wanted to present to you. I'm really happy that I work as the Parks and Rec Director, and you guys have never asked about my coefficients of dispersency. I'm not even quite sure what that is. I went back and tried to Google both words, and I haven't got them yet. Number 2, you also took what I consider, this is just my personal opinion, those long, boring things that Tom Block puts on, and he combined them all into one, so thank you. So I won't take too much time here this morning. This is a contract with Cook, Flatt, and Strobel for our pedestrian footbridge as part of the Gage Park fitness trail loop. Just to remind you, we went out for RFP. The Professional Services Selection Committee recommended us to negotiate with Cook, Flatt, and Strobel. We brought that back to the Commission. What you have now is a contract in front of you with Cook, Flatt, and Strobel for design and construction documents for that trail. It's paid for 80% by the National Recreation Trails Program, which is administered by Kansas Wildlife and Parks and Tourism, and 20% is the county's match. About $16,500 is what we're estimating. Be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Are there questions or comments for Mr. Knight?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the contract by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, John. Next item.
Item E, Facilities Maintenance. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C59, 2017 with Minnesota Elevator Incorporated for elevator maintenance at all Shawnee County locations.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Kroll, Facilities Maintenance Director. After 10 years with no reflection on bad service from ThyssenKrupp Elevator, we decided to go out and see what we could do pricing-wise. We did receive several proposals from very qualified companies. MEI did come in as the lowest proposal. Estimated annual savings is slightly over $10,000 a year for all of our locations that have elevators. Parks and Rec would have them, Elections Office, of course Facilities does, as well as Corrections. And I move for you guys to approve this, answer any questions you might have.
And the estimated savings?
Will be about $10,000
$10,000.
a year, excuse me.
Excellent. Any questions or comments? I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Number 2, consider authorization and execution of contract C60, 2017 with Americrete Incorporated, amending contract C447, 2016 for parking lot foundation improvements, including alternates number 1 and 2 at the North Annex, to include a change order in the amount of $6,112.50 for replacement of 305 square feet of 6-inch paving and 16 linear feet of curb and gutter in the north parking lot.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Kroll, Facilities Maintenance Director. You did approve, back in December, I believe it was, the foundation and grading improvements out at the North Annex. Shortly after Americrete started work on that particular project, we had a washout and a cave-in on the north side of the annex out there near the one storm sewer receptacle. Worked on the change order on this with them, and they came back with the price. Looks like we have a busted piece of plastic right underneath the parking lot there, and for $6,112.50, we can get all that concrete repaired and that pipe replaced. We had initially, when we went out for RFP on this entire North Annex project, we anticipated a cost of $75,000. With this change order, the total cost is $61,165.50. So we're still hanging in there pretty good on that. Would come from deferred capital. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments?
I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
Item F, Sheriff's Office. Number 1, acknowledge receipt of correspondence regarding renewal of a contract, Contract C61, 2017, with the Sherwood Improvement District for additional law enforcement services by the Reserve Division for the period January 1, 2017 through December 31, 2019, at a cost to the Sherwood Improvement District of $2,525 per month for years 2017 and 18, and $2,625 per month for year 2019, to be deposited into the reserve fund.
Good morning, Commission. Phil Bloom, Under Sheriff, Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. What we have is the contract between the Sheriff's Office and the Sherwood Improvement Board provide law enforcement services for the Sherwood community. This is typically a 3-year agreement that we've had, and this is the renewal for the agreement. And a bit of apology to Commissioner Archer. When this process began, there was a bit of a hiccup on the Sheriff's Office end that somehow the contract went to the Attorney General for signature and bypassed inadvertently. So we had to change. It was initially had Commissioner Bueller as the chair, but we need a signature. The contract needs to have a signature from the chair. The error was that we started in 16, and unfortunately, the delay in it got back. So it was an error on our part not to have Commissioner Archer as the chair on there. So it was a bit of an error on our part, but it does require the signature from the chair on this one. I'll answer any questions I can on this if I can for you.
Any questions or comments for this? Good to see you, Under Sheriff. It's
Well,
been a while.
it has a little bit of a while,
Been
so
way
it's good
too
to
long.
get
You
it back
need
on
to
to
come
everybody.
visit
So.
more often. It's good to see you. I'll make a motion to acknowledge, this is acknowledge receipt of the correspondence.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay. Motion made to acknowledge by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you, Phil. Next item, please.
Item G, Administrative Services. Number 1, Financial Report Preliminary for 2016.
Good morning. Betty Greiner, Director of Administrative Services.
I had, by the way, I had asked Betty to present this is like our preliminary report card that we're given to taxpayers. So thank you for finishing this and presenting today, Betty.
Well, and it is preliminary, and I'll explain a little bit why. As you know, but for the public, we do have the department's encumber funds for items that they have ordered by the end of the year that have not been paid for yet. And then they have 2.5 months for those to be paid. And then anything that has not been paid by the end, or by March 15th, those encumbrances are deleted. So that's why we will not have a final numbers until then, but it should be very close to what I'm presenting today. I'll start with the revenue side. So this is our 2016 revenue. As you can see, we received revenue of $101,429,636. The budget was $100,153,209, and our 2015 total was $100,899,283,000. This just shows the different categories that we receive revenue in, and as you can see, the bottom one is property taxes, which is of course the largest area. The one in the red is other taxes. The green is property-related fees. The purple is charges for services, and then the top one, the light blue, is miscellaneous revenue. Just a couple things to point out here, and I will go through the different categories individually, but just looking at the totals, we are over budget by $1,276,000. That is 1.27% of our budget. We received, in 2016, we received $530,000 more than we received the prior year. But as you can also see, our budget, that what we had projected was actually lower than 2015. And the major item in that, and why that was lower, was because, you know, with the Parks and Rec merger, we had been receiving funds from that every year, and that stopped in 2015. So in 2015, we received $1 million from the city on that we are no longer receiving. So that's kind of explains why our budget was actually lower than what it was our actual was in 2015. So I will go through each of those categories. Our first one is our property tax revenue. We received $74,457,000 in our property tax revenue. Our budget was $74,765,000. So we were actually $308,000 under budget for this year. But if you look at that as a percentage again, that is 0.41%, so less than 0.5% difference in that. And we received $1,593,000 more than we did the prior year. Our next category is other tax revenue. We received $16,607,000 compared to a budget of $15,294,000. So we, in this category, are $1,313,000 over budget, and that really is made up of two areas, both of which are estimates that we receive from the state. So generally, we just, you know, go by the estimates they have sent us. Motor vehicle taxes came in at $614,000 over what was estimated, and our highway tax came in at $347,000 more. Okay, our property-related fees, we've received $2,261,000 compared to our budget of $1,549,000. So we actually received $712,000 more than we had budgeted, and that's in two areas again. Mortgage registration fees came in at $243,000 more. Filing fees came in at $371,000 more, and that is something that may be related to Steve's presentation on more sales, more permits, more mortgages. So, you know, that can kind of carry over to other areas in the county. This category is charges for services. We received $4,603,000, excuse me, compared to a budget of $5,287,000. So we were $684,000 under budget in that, and mainly two different categories. The largest category, as we've talked about all year, is that Parks and Rec revenue was down this year. It was down $557,000 less than we had estimated, and part of it was we had a very unseasonal, is that a word? Unseasonal spring. And then also the Aquatic Center did not open until at the very end of the summer, and that had been budgeted to be open for the whole summer. The other department that was under budget on that was the Department of Corrections. Their revenue was down because their counts, their inmate counts are down. Okay, and the next area is other revenue. We've received $3,499,000 compared to our budget of $3,256,000. Excuse me. So we were $243,000 over budget in this category. Two main areas on that. One was investment. Our investment income is up this year. Another area that we were over is we received a clawback of $224,000. Now the clawback you approved to transfer to our capital outlay fund to be used for capital outlay use, but for accounting purposes, we have to show that as revenue, and then we show it as an expenditure when it's transferred out. So for this purposes, you know, it's included in that revenue. And in this, you will see that in this miscellaneous revenue category, we received $615,000 less than last year. There again, that goes back to that Parks and Rec merger where we received $1 million less from the city from that. So when you look at our revenue as a total for the year, 73% of all of our revenue came from property taxes. The next category, the next highest, is other taxes, which is 16%. Then we have property-related fees at 2%, charges for services at 5%, and then our miscellaneous revenue at 4%. So as I had said at the very beginning, we are over budget by $1,276,000. That excess revenue will go to our reserves, to increase our reserves for the county. At the beginning of the year, our reserves were approximately $30 million, so that will bring them up to $31 million, which is exactly what our bond rating companies want. They, in our last rating, one of the things that they said that would help us to maintain or even improve our rating was to maintain our reserves or to show an steady increase in those reserves. So,
And I think it's important to point out that reserves are very important
yes.
to us in our financial stability. Unlike a lot of people at the state level who don't understand reserves, we believe strongly in being financially sound.
Yes.
So, next
Yes,
item,
your
please.
reserves really tell you how healthy your financial situation
Exactly.
is.
Exactly. Yes.
Question though, but our bond rating is somewhat held back by
Yes.
financial situation at the state, correct?
It absolutely is, and that has been mentioned in our last few bond rating reports. The state is one of the largest, or maybe the largest employer in our county. So anything that affects the state affects our county and the financial stability of that county. So yes, that's absolutely correct.
Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner.
Any other questions on the revenue side?
Not this time.
Okay, well, we'll go on to the expenditure side then. Our total expenditures for the year were $99,649,138 compared to a budgeted amount of $100,156,368. Last year, our expenditures were $95,042,405. So totally, in a total basis, we are under budget $508,012. That is encompassing all of these categories. That is 0.51%, so just about a half of 1%. So there again, just as with the revenue, I think we are what you would call us right on budget. I mean, really in a very comfortable margin there. As you will also see, excuse me, as you'll also see, our total expenditures, even though we're under budget by $500,000, our total expenditures are $4,606,000 more than last year. A lot of that went to the employees' salaries and our salary increases from our compensation study. But like I say, even though we are under budget, the total expenditures went up. And this chart, just like the other one, shows the different categories, with the bottom being public safety, the bottom one is blue, the red is public health, the green is administrative services, the purple is public works, the lighter blue is Parks and Rec, and then the top one is debt service. And I'll go through each of the different categories on this, too. Our first category is public safety, and our expenditures were $43,446,000 compared to a budget of $44,085,000. And in this, on the public safety category, we are under budget $339,000. Primarily, the biggest one is the Department of Corrections on that. They are $265,000 under budget. You know, they were under on revenue because they had less inmates. They're also under on expenses for that. And the other one is the district attorney. The district attorney's office was $50,000 under budget. Next category is public health. Our expenditures were $9,520,000, and compared to our budget of $9,519,000. Our public health is going to be right on budget each time because these are generally quarterly allocations that we pay out to these. Even within our own, our health department, which used to be health agency, last half of the year was just the health department, those are still a monthly amount that's allocated to that fund. So there really is not going to be a variance here. But you can tell by looking at this that our expenditures were actually down $200,914, and I'll go into that a little bit later in more detail. Next category is administrative services. Budgeted was $10,893,000 compared to a budget of $10,938,000. So, you know, very much right on budget there. Public Works, expenditures of $10,404,000 compared to a budget of $10,464,000. And as I mentioned, you know, well, I will go into this a little more in detail later too. Parks, Recreation, and Expo Center. There again, right on budget at $15,010,000. And debt service at $10,075,000. It was budgeted at $10,137,000. So $62,000 under budget based on refundings that we did. Okay, this chart just shows each of the different categories, and it shows the blue is the current year expenditures, the red is what was budgeted, and the green is the expenditures from last year. And this just really shows that I guess how the different categories line up, and you can tell that the public safety is by far the largest category, with Parks and Rec being second. And this is just a pie chart showing those percentages. Public safety is 44% of our total expenditures. The next highest would be Parks and Rec at 15%. Then we have administrative services at 11%, and then Public Works at 10%, Public Health at 10%, and debt service at 10%. Now to go into this, since this is our last kind of our review for the whole year, this chart just kind of shows the different categories and the departments within each of those categories. So you'll see the first category here is administrative services, and you'll see that includes general expenses, capital outlay, and then all of these other departments that are generally administrative type departments. As you can see, the budget variances, we are under budget a total of $269,000, almost $270,000 for the year. And it's made up of a lot of different ones. And I'll just kind of, in each category, I'll just kind of hit the highlights here. But general expenses is under budget $131,000 for this year. The county clerk's office was $65,000 under budget. Elections was $85,000 over budget. When you look at the total for this category, we are 2.47% under budget for the year. Now, if you look at it compared to last year, we actually spent $110,000 more than we did last year, and that's there again. I'm just going to kind of look at the highlights. General expenses was $547,000 under what we spent last year. Elections was $483,000 over what was spent last year, but you know, elections is on a 2-year cycle, so every other year their expenses are going to be more, but they were $483,000 more than spent last year. And then IT was $139,000 more than last year, and I think a lot of that IT was in salaries with the increases for the comp study. If you go down to the next category, the next category is public safety. As you can see, we are under budget $339,000 for the year. As I mentioned, $265,000 of that is the Department of Corrections. I'll just remind you that that is even after they bought a new chiller for the jail, which was about $550,000. So they were able to absorb that in their budget this year, which really will help our capital outlay fund for this year and for the future. And then the district attorney was under by $50,000. The sheriff was down under budget by $21,000. But what I want to point out, though, is if you look at this, even though we are under budget $339,000 for this year, we spent $1,795,000 more than we spent the prior year. And there again, most of that it went to the employees in their compensation increases. And then the last category on this page is Public Works. We're showing, under budget by $60,000 for the year. Now, this one, I'll remind you that by statute, Public Works, whatever is left in Public Works budget, can be transferred to the bridge fund, which we do every year. And at the end of the year, right before the end of the year, Tom came and asked for your approval to do that. So their budget variance is zero, and that's because we transfer that money to that fund each year. But when you look at what was spent and compared to last year, his budget was $459,000 more than the prior year. So we spent $495,000 more in this category than we did in the prior year. And there again, a lot of that went to the compensation. Okay, go to the next category of public health. As I mentioned before, the budget variance on this is zero, and that's because these are quarterly allocations that are allocated to each of these organizations or to the health department. But if you look at the total shows that our spending was $200,914 less than last year. And I just wanted to point out several items on this. For 2016, we actually gave $100,000 additional dollars to Vallejo for mental health. But we had $125,000 less going to the ambulance service. And then we had $241,000 less because of the health clinic that was privatized. So, just looking at the total at the bottom doesn't always tell the complete story.
Might ask a question.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, and Betty, that amount for the health agency will
Yes.
persist for, 4 more years then, is that correct?
Yes, and this was just for the first 6 months.
Okay.
So yes, it was, the transfer was July 1, so this savings we saw just for the last half of the year. So it will be substantially more next year. Okay, if we go down to Parks and Rec and Expo Center, as you will remember on that, I'm showing no budget variance on this because Expo Center and the fair are quarterly allocations that we automatically pay to them. When it looks at Parks and Rec, they were actually under budget by $1,037,000, and you will recall that you approved that amount to be transferred to the Parks and Rec Building Maintenance Fund for them to handle some of the deferred maintenance that was listed in the master plan as needing to be addressed. So that is why their variance is zero. Noxious weeds has a statutory item in theirs that says anything that they have left in their budget can be transferred to an equipment fund. So that's why their variance is also a zero. And then it shows that compared to last year, there was $31,673 more spent for Parks and Rec. But I will remind you that they transferred out their summer camps for 2016, and so that was $300,000 of expenditures that we transferred out to an additional fund. So, you know, there again, if you were really comparing apples to apples, this would be $331,000 that they were able to spend more. The last category is debt service. As I mentioned, the budget variance for this year is $62,000. Now you'll see that it's way over on the bond debt service. It's way under on the COP debt service. That's because we transferred COP debt to bond debt throughout the year. So that's why those just really offset each other, and then we had a little bit of savings. But if you look at, compared to last year, we actually spent $2,149,000 more on debt service this year. And that is because the 2015 COP, we started paying debt service on that this year. And just to remind the public, that was for the aquatic center, the jail kitchen, the Dornwood improvements, the spray park, the deferred maintenance, and then the health department remodel. And then our last item here is just the expenditure that I had to show for the transfer, the clawback revenue that we talked about earlier that was transferred to the capital outlay fund. So there again, it gets us back to this budget variance of $508,000 that we are under budget for the year, and that was approved by you to go to our capital outlay fund. So we will use that for capital outlay needs that we have in the future. And then if you look, as I mentioned, that we actually spent $4,606,000 more in 16 than 15, and the majority of that went to the employees in compensation. So, any questions?
Very good.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Cook.
Betty, if I was to do some quick math, our revenue after expenses, it appears that we have $1,780,498 in excess.
Right.
And we have the part that goes to our capital outlay, but the remainder of that is what we talked about going to our reserves.
That's correct. Yes.
So the highlight is that Shawnee County was fiscally conservative in their funds and was able to come in under budget.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
And then of your last presentation, it appears that we just have two areas that went over budget. One being the coroner of $782, and then our elections commissioner went over by an amount more than $782.
Well, yes, and the coroner really, in that case, really did not go over budget per se. We contract out to the coroner services, and that is a set amount that we pay each time. There are a few expenses that the county has to pay on coroners type things. I'm trying to think, the remains of people that are unclaimed and that kind of thing. And so it was recorded in the coroner's department, but really is more of a general expense item. So the contract to the coroner did not go over budget. We paid that at the contracted amount.
So then that leaves us with only one department that did go over budget.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bueller.
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay. I do have a few items I'd like to discuss. The first thing is in public safety. I would like to thank our Brian Cole and the Sheriff's Office and the DA for being well under budget. That is appreciated. I guess I should point out that in Shawnee County, it's a leader's job to manage to their budget. That's a bedrock ideal for us. And I've got to tell you, I am concerned about the elections office. We have spent millions of dollars, this commission has, in a new office, in new furniture, in hardware, in software, and yet the elections office has gone over their budget by 6.5%. I'm very concerned about it, and I've invited the elections commissioner to visit with us this morning about exactly why.
I do have
Yes,
a follow-up
Commissioner.
question. You alluded to some of the purchases, the equipment.
Yes.
Where is that reflected?
The debt service,
Okay.
which is the, the building itself, the cost of the building was 2.4 million. That was let me say this, that was in the COP debt from prior years. So that would be
Okay.
reflected in our debt service.
Okay.
And it's not allocated back to the Elections
No,
Commissioner?
no,
Okay.
no. That's debt service for the county, and it's in that debt service category that we record.
And then same with the equipment.
The equipment, yes, that was a 2016 bond for the election equipment. That we have not started paying debt service on yet. That will start in 2017. So that is not in these numbers at all. That will start showing up in 2017.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Howell, would you please, if you'd like to make comments?
I've asked Mark to put a slide presentation in for us here, so it's going to take him a second to do that. I think first of all, thank you, Commissioners, for the
Let me get rid of this
Sure.
one for you.
for the opportunity to visit with you. I think you're asking good questions. I do want to, I think, disagree with a couple of statements that have been made up here, and I want to go through those in detail. First of all, I do want to say I do think the Commission has been a good partner in many ways as it relates to the building and the equipment. You know, we've had many discussions about the fact that, as you know, we've had 3 times the traffic through the building as part of the advanced voting process, so it has been very helpful, I think, to voters to have a process that allows them now. The old building wouldn't allow the voters to do that. So you've been a good partner as it relates to the building and the functional side of that, as well as recognizing that the 24-year-old equipment needed to be replaced. So I do want to say I think that you've done a good job of being a part of that. First of all, I want to disagree, and we've had these conversations. I know, Commissioner Archer, I've asked you several times for a couple of meetings recently. I know the other commissioners have also agreed to meet, so we've had some discussions about this. This isn't like this is a brand-new conversation that we've had. We've discussed these matters at length. I think that we all, frankly, I told you in 15 that I thought the 16 numbers would be very difficult to meet, because I think I have a public obligation when I see things that aren't going to work, or I don't believe that they'll work. I think I have a public obligation to say so. And I've actually said the same thing about the 17 budget as well. I believe that the numbers that you have are going to be difficult. I have a never say never approach to this. I constantly am going to be working, try to make it work if it can. But I think you should know the 17 numbers, we have some of the same kinds of issues that we're going to talk about here briefly. Betty mentioned that there are statutes that control how budgeting is done. In the election office, we've had conversations about this. The former election commissioner, as well as myself, have mentioned this to the commission numerous times. There is a statute that says that the budget that you should actually have included in the county budget is the budgeted amount of $1.566827, which is the certified budget that I gave to you, that the statute specifically says should be included in the county's budget. The county has chosen not to do that.
So, if I may, you could certify anything you wanted to.
I wouldn't do that.
You could, theoretically, certify 2 million, 3 million, according, and not be accountable to this commission or taxpayers. Is that correctly?
My commitment to you is I will always be accountable, and I will always answer any questions that you have. I'm not going to deal in the realm of what ifs or things that haven't or don't happen.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Cox.
Commissioner Howell, when the commission adopted a budget for the elections office that was less than the budget you submitted, did you file any formal protest or formal objection to that budget?
It is not my obligation. It's frankly, the statute reads that it's the county commission's obligation to include it in the county budget. I let you know that I thought the number that I considered a target, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, we're part of a team.
And frankly, we have to work together as a team in order to achieve what needs to be done for the public. So my goal has always been to try to meet even the numbers that you set out that I think are outside the statutory scheme.
But the answer then would be that you did not file any objection or protest.
Yeah, I don't believe in legal action unless it's absolutely necessary, and my preference is to have conversations with people to try to solve problems.
But even outside of a legal protest, just to file a formal notice with the commission that it's not following the statute, you never brought that to the commission until now, correct?
I have mentioned to the commissioners at numerous times. Again, I'm not really big on going down legal roads and filing official protests when I think a conversation can get the job done. That's my approach. It always has been my approach.
But when the budget was adopted in 2016 or 2015,
2015.
in August of 2015, when the final budget was adopted, doesn't your silence create acquiescence or agreement to follow a budget that's been adopted?
I don't believe it does. I think I've communicated clearly that I believe that the statute is the statute and it ought to be followed. Let's look at the statute for just a moment. If I can get this to turn to the next page. Is this a click program here? There it is. Here's the statute that we're talking about. Before July 2015 of each year, the election commissioner shall certify to the Board of County Commissioners an itemized statement showing the amount necessary to pay the salary of the election commissioner, the deputy election commissioner, and other employees in the office of the election commissioner, and other expenses of said office during the next ensuing budget year, and the county commissioner shall cause the same to be included in the county budget. My statement to you today is that the numbers that Betty has up there are really not the numbers that should be up there. The 155 number that we talked about is the number that actually should be in there, which would show me $150,000 under budget. Mark, do you want to run this thing for just a second here, make sure I'm...
I can't see that. Oh, I can't read. Yeah, I'm trying. I can't see that, Betty.
I seem to be able to stop it this time.
There you go. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Okay. All right, thanks. Election office expenditures have not exceeded the certified budget amount that the statutorily should have been placed in the county budget for 2016. Nevertheless, I think that my job as a public official is not to create problems. I think it is my job to communicate clearly, and I really do not particularly appreciate people who use the legal system to their own benefit, when really in the public interest it ought to be conversations with people trying to solve problems. That's what I have always attempted to do as commissioner. That's what I will always do as election commissioner, is to have conversations, not try to use the legal system to my own personal advantage or to try to score political points. I'm actually about solving problems, and that's what we've always attempted to do. In 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015, we were able to meet the commissioner's targets. Like I said, I don't believe that the statutory schema calls for that, but nevertheless, that's what I have attempted to do throughout each of those years as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Cook.
I'm glad you brought up the 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015 budgets. Your office was under budget, and when we say budget, the amount that the commission approved.
Correct.
And for the years 2012, and you've been the commissioner since 2012.
Correct.
But for the years of 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, we didn't have any discussion about a certified budget versus an approved budget, right?
I would note that I have always placed this statute on the top of the certified budget that says that it shall be placed in the county budget for the next ensuing budget year.
But we never had a discussion.
I have tried to
such as
have.
this.
Well, I actually have had a discussion. I have at least attempted to have a discussion with the chairman each year that there's been a budget discussion. I actually remember in 2015 having had a brief conversation with Commissioner Archer, saying that I did not think that that number would work, but that I would certainly try to make it work if I could.
But what I mean, Commissioner Howell, is you've never made a presentation such as you are doing right now with the public about the discussion versus a certified budget versus the approved budget. And it's that approved budget that we submit to the clerk, and the clerk then submits to the state, and that we are statutorily then bound by. But-
Personally, I think you're bound by it anyway. Again, once you don't follow the statutes, I don't have any advice for you as to what the correct set of actions to take at that point in time are. That's my opinion, but I don't have any answers for you as it relates to that.
But I think your point is well taken, and I should point out that every other department in Shawnee County hadn't had a problem in meeting their budget, and we haven't heard anything like this. Go ahead, continue.
And Mr. Chairman, it's not until this year that we're now having a discussion about a certified budget versus an approved budget.
That's correct. Thank you.
I've mentioned it numerous times to numerous chairmans. I know I've mentioned it to Commissioner Bueller. Again, I'm not overly interested in having a technical discussion. If there's a way to make something work, I'm much more about trying to get that done.
Okay.
I just might
Yes,
add,
Commissioner.
during the budget process, we get requests from all the different departments, and oftentimes they are more than what they receive when we certify the budget. I mean, there's certain, like, what is it, the Extension Office has some certain types of state statutes that we have to follow, but we still have that ability to set the final budget. So, I think I've expressed to you, like other departments, we have those discussions, but that the budgeted amount that's finalized in August is what we're working off of. So, but go ahead and continue.
Part of what I think is important for the public to understand is that when you're running elections, we're talking about civil rights violations and lawsuits if people aren't handled in a consistent and fair manner in the way that we do our lawsuits. You can see we have federal laws, regulations, and timeframes squeeze on us. We have counties' laws, regulations, and budget timeframes that put pressure on us, and state laws, regulations, and timeframes. And customer expectations are also an important part of the program as well. So there are a lot of pressures. There are a lot of things. Basically, what this map is basically showing you is there is very little that we truly have control over, and we feel like we've done all that we can. And we're continuing to research that, and I'll get into that here in a minute, other ways to be more efficient. But we have done, I believe, a very good job of being efficient and finding efficiencies within the small little realm that we can actually affect those changes. This actually shows you since 2008, which was the most recent presidential election, from 2008 to 2016, certified budget numbers, Board of Commission adopted numbers, actual expenditures. And you can see that we are certainly more efficient as a percentage of change than the rest of the county. So I'm not going to take a backseat to anyone when it comes to percentage of increase in budget over those years. We've been very efficient. Our numbers are relatively flat compared to much of the rest of the county's growth as a percentage.
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes, Commissioner.
Commissioner Howell, if we go back to that slide, though, I think this encapsulates what I was trying to say earlier. It doesn't appear that, at least by your slide going back to 2008, that this commission or the prior commissioners have ever adopted the same amount that the elections commissioner submitted. And so this county then, by your accounting today, has never followed the state statute.
I've mentioned several times that is a statute that ought to be followed. The commission has disagreed, so I've done the best that I could to work within the parameters.
Commissioner Cook is making.
That's not the point I'm making. The point is, this has never been an issue up until this year.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, but yeah, this just shows that the certified budget has never been adopted.
What I think I'm trying to show with this is that the Shawnee County Election Office is extremely efficient, especially as compared to the rest of the county's budget and budgeting processes and expenditures.
and has always been within the budget that the commission has set.
Actually, that's not the case. I believe that the actual expenditures in 2010 went beyond the amount. 2010 actual expenditures exceeded both the certified budget as well as, I believe, the Board of County Commissioner adopted. And I don't know the whole story. I just let you know that it has happened. If we go and look at the county budget as a whole, you can see that the rate of growth is quite a bit more substantial than the election office rate of growth. Here again, we're comparing from 2008 2016 certified budget to the Board of County Commission adopted. You can see that the Board of County Commission adopted trend line is actually down since 2008, and that the certified budget numbers are relatively flat. And again, they are still well below the overall growth of the county's budget. Okay. Let's talk for a moment about the unforeseen issues that occurred in the 2016 and also to some degree will happen in 2017. The equipment RFP at the time that we put the budget together was not completed. We did not have any way to know software costs, the potential cost structures of any of the things related to the equipment and the software. So we basically just had to take a wild guess at what we thought those numbers would be. Same thing with the building costs and allocations. We moved there in 15 at the same time we were putting the budget together. Like I told you, I think the commission has done an excellent job as it relates to the building. I know that those are costs that do occur. I'm not contesting or questioning that. I think it is an effective space that does work well for voters and for passing 15,000 people throughout an election through the building. It has to be a space that's functional. Again, though, those were some of the things that were somewhat unclear to us and make it more difficult to build a perfect budget.
But the operating expense of the building, from what I understand, had decreased from about $116,000 down to $61,000. So it's over $60,000 of savings in the new building.
And I'm not sure if that's correct or not. I think
is.
one of the things that we've told Betty that we would do, and one of the things that we've promised commissioners would do, because I think have an obligation to be clear, transparent, and upfront about these processes, is we're going to try to meet with Betty once a month going forward to have conversations about these issues. But my point here is when we're building the budget, these issues weren't clear, and the actual costs of the building were not known, and some of those just simply weren't knowable at that time. Also, with new equipment, you know, the RFP was finalized and actually purchased new equipment. We had to receive that equipment, we had to test, we had to put it in place. All those things take an extra amount of time, and again, without knowing exactly what equipment or how long it will take to set those things up, it's kind of difficult to budget perfectly for that. Same thing with training materials and the election processes that had to be rebuilt around the delivery of the new equipment. And the new equipment works differently and is transported differently. We had a hiccup in the August primary that we had to deal with, where we had judges waiting in the parking lot for 3 hours to deliver equipment back. So it cost us a little bit to fix that problem, but as we've gone throughout the year, we've dealt with some of those issues, and I think we've resolved them adequately. Additionally, we had 4 separate legal battles and court orders that were coming down, constantly changing the requirements on the ground as we're trying to get ballots in the mail and out to voters. So those constantly changing rules required a lot of overtime to manage effectively. Record turnout also drives more overtime in the office for this election since it is a presidential.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner.
Commissioner Howell, if we start with your number 5, though, the record turnout, that wasn't a record turnout for the overall election, but a record turnout for advanced ballots, correct?
It was actually, I think, a record. I think you have to go back to 2008 to find the most recent election at which there was a slightly higher turnout. So it's a substantial increase over 2012.
But in 2016, for your 2016 year, I think in speaking with you before today, you indicated that you really had an advanced ballot turnout that you couldn't have expected, that this is a trend that we're now seeing in voters. We see more advanced voters wanting to participate. Is that accurate?
Voters that want to vote in the office as opposed to mail, which is differentiated, advance in person is a substantially more popular option with voters. I think some of that is driven by the fact that the mail now frankly takes longer. Even at the national level, the post office has admitted it can take 4 to 7 days. Well, that takes a big chunk out of that 10-day window that we've got to get those ballots to each voter in the mail. And I think people are opting for a quicker, easier version, which means voting in office in person because it's quick and it's easy and it's effective.
And I think on number 3, when we talked, you talked about some expenditures you had and going through and making sure that the programs you received from the state match up with what we are having in the county, so that when a person shows up to submit their identification, it actually lets them vote. And that you found some errors that corrected that process.
Again, I'm not sure if you're talking about the interstate cross-check or if you're talking about something different.
You had a consultant that came in and did a review of the database to make sure that it was accurate. Is that?
That's actually really more about the softwares and making sure the softwares are set up correctly. Yes, there were some errors of one of those databases, and it's a good thing we did have some people come in and make sure that everything was set up correctly.
So due to error, and that again was to make sure that the elections are accurate, that people are allowed to vote, and that everything does go seamlessly, right?
Correct.
And then on those 4 separate legal battles, those are the ones with the secretary and other individuals that the courts rule on. And so because of that action from the Secretary of State's office, it creates more work for you on the local level. Can you explain that for?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to blame the Secretary of State because, quite frankly, those were lawsuits driven by the ACLU, and the judges made determinations in conjunction. Again, I don't know the full details of exactly how or why, and I don't really want to get into a political discussion about that, other than just to say when a decision comes down on a Friday before election, that creates some problems as it relates to getting the work done that needs to be done and changing all the data that has to be changed in accordance with, and changing the website as it relates to those lawsuit decisions that come down from a court.
You know, a phrase that gets thrown around a lot is an unfunded mandate. Things that get pushed upon us that we have no control over. And so would this be an example of that? The things that happen on a state level that you have no control over but impact your office to make sure that you are following all the letters of the law?
I would probably sooner say it's something that we always deal with in elections. We always deal with something different. We always deal with something new, and there is always a new or changing environment as it relates to that. I think it's something that we have to learn to build into the budget to assume that those kinds of events will occur every election.
But in this year, it was the 4 separate legal battles
Correct.
that predicated that.
Correct. Again, 2012, 13, 14, and 15, we were able to meet the county commissioner's targets. Like I said, I don't believe that that's a legal requirement that we do it, but I do it because I think it's important, and I will always attempt to do that, at least to have a discussion about what's possible, because I think it's important to be transparent and to work with the county and the county commission, because frankly, we can't do our job without the participation and the teamwork of the county itself. There are too many functions that we have to do that are about teamwork. Some of the reductions in services that we've made at county commissioner requests in the past include reducing the hours and the days available to voters to vote in the office. That in-person advanced voting we have squeezed down over the past 4 or 5 years in specific response to commissioners wanting us to find ways to save money. Those are services that we have in fact reduced. Same thing with filling vacant staff positions. Back in 2013, 2014, there were entire months that in order to make the number that the commission set out, we just simply did not fill major positions that needed to be filled. So we managed to get it done, but there was a price tag as it related to getting new people in, getting them trained, and the actual overtime and wearing out existing people who then had to fill the roles of 2 different people for various parts of an election cycle. There have also been, in those years, significant reductions in the number of board workers hired to work at polling places. And I'll go through here in just a minute some of the issues that created in 2012, 2013, and 14 elections. 2012 elections issues, part of how we were able to actually get some of these numbers down in the early years, we knew that 2012, 2013, there were some of the pieces of equipment that we simply didn't use and didn't repair because we knew we were relatively close to getting new equipment. So that was a line item that we could actually use for other purposes. In 2012, there were not enough phone lines in the building. We were unable to answer voter questions in a timely manner. That's something that the new space has allowed us to correct. We think we've dealt with that effectively. There were a record number of provisional ballots. In my term, we've never seen the number of ballots that we saw in 2012. There were long lines and many machine jamming issues. We've solved that problem, but in 2012, that was a significant problem. And prior to my appointment in the primary election, there were results that were questionable in a primary state representative race due to the wrong ballot being handed out all day. Much of the changes that I've implemented and much of the cost structure that is in place, frankly, is a result of what happened in that primary and my dedication to making sure that it is easy and clear for both voters and board workers to make sure that a mistake is not made in the future as it relates to that. In 2013, due to an impending major snowstorm, polling place consolidation occurred and was conducted on a snow route at Heritage Hall. As you may recall, in that primary, we had forecasts of 12 inches of snow. We had to make a decision at the last minute as to whether we really thought some of our 80 and 90-year-old judges were going to be able to get into their parking lot that probably wouldn't be plowed. However, that was a significant savings. There was a significant cost savings that occurred in 2013 that I think we all hope never happens again, because I don't prefer to shut down polling places. Many, many board workers were not invited to participate in that particular election, so we were able to save some money in that election that we cannot save in the 2017 election. That would be the same 4-year cycle. So if you go back and look at those numbers, remember, don't count the board workers that weren't hired, because we think they will be hired this time. We also demonstrated, I think, to ourselves as well as to the county that we needed a flexible e-poll book as a part of that process to make sure that we could more easily make those kinds of changes. We saw the presentation from Wyandotte County, how they handled in a more flexible manner their particular situation that was very similar to ours. And we simply didn't have enough staff hired or trained. Again, I made the decision not to hire people at that year because we were trying to meet those numbers at commissioner request. 2014 election. The issues that we saw here were there were long lines at some polling places still, and we've tried to address that with additional poll pad purchases that we've recently made, thanks to the commission. We've been able, I think, in the 2016 election, frankly, the best run election I think we've seen in Shawnee County in a long time. No long lines. People were happy with their ability to get through advanced voting. Not enough board workers at the polling place. Another issue that we spent a lot of time in 2016 dealing with. It does cost money to hire new people. It does cost money to go out and find new board workers. New staff were hired, but we needed extensive training in 2014 to get them up to speed. 2015, we moved the election office to the Van Buren Street location. We did extensive research in preparation for the RFP process to consider new equipment options. We also held 2 additional mail ballot elections. I would note that the RFP that we put together, I'm proud of, actually has won some awards for its efficiency and its collaborative efforts. As you know, it basically represented over 50% of the voters in the state of Kansas. Basically included Wyandotte, Johnson County, Sedgwick County, as well as Shawnee County, and can be used by other units of government. So I think we're proud of the work that we did and the amount of research and time that it took, and it has won awards already. At some point we may talk about that further. 2016 experience, we had to wrap up the purchase of the equipment, the delivery, the prep of the new equipment. There were 3 times the number of advanced in-person voters, 15,000 voters through the building in about a week. We actually were processing over 250 voters an hour at one point in time. We've had nothing but good comments from the public about it. They appreciated the option and the timely, reasonable time frame that we were able to afford. In my opinion, it's the best run election in 4 years. Staff deserves major kudos for the amount of effort and time they put into getting this all done. There were no extensive long lines at polling places in 2016. There were a significant reduction in provisional ballots. The nearly cut in half, I don't believe is correct. I actually should have taken that out of there. There still were plenty, but they were not as many as we've seen in the past, and we're continuing to work on cutting that number down. Many emails and letters expressing appreciation for the voting in office option. Again, kudos to the commissioners for their efforts to give us a space that really will function out correctly for voters who want that option. And I would also add that, like I mentioned earlier, that parking lot line of 3 hours of supervising judges coming back was a problem that we've recognized in the primary. It did cost some money to resolve it, but it needed to be done so that we can get people. Frankly, it's hard to find supervising judges, and many of them were threatened to quit, so it was something we simply had to do. Additional future cost drivers. County Commission continues to add new costs after budget are in place. I know we've talked to most of you about this. I don't know that these are major numbers, but I think it's important to note that as we add contracts after we've already got a budget set, if there's an increased cost associated with that, the Commission, I think, at a minimum, should at least recognize that fact. Building and custodial cleaning services related to the Shawnee County Election Office, the cost went up. I've committed to Betty that I'm going to find every dollar humanly possible in 2017. Part of how we're going to do that, the best idea I can come up with, is to do some of these functions internally using staff rather than using existing county contracts. Because if we have to go out and find dollars, we're going to find a way to do it. So I just want the Commission to know these are driving some of the cost issues that we're seeing. Legal notice publications, cost has gone up. Election mowing contract was never included in the budget. Elevator maintenance, never included in the budget. I think I found out today that may actually have went down. I don't know the details yet. I'm hoping that's correct. That would be nice if that actually went down. And then same thing with generator maintenance and KDHE compliance with the generator on site. Those are extra costs that have been added that were not part of the original budget process. 2016 and 2017 increased cost drivers generally not related to the Commission. New equipment, software, and related election setup expenses for Elvis. The cost increase for Elvis has gone from $12,500 to $30,000 a year. Significant. Same thing with No Ink and ES&S. We've waited 24 years to replace our election equipment. Software costs, I think Pat could tell you, have gone up substantially in the last 24 years. If you bought a car 24 years ago, I think you would find the price sticker shock would be significant, and that's frankly what we're facing related to these issues. Also, I mentioned that new delivery and return process for election equipment costs us an additional $8,500 because the way that we're sending the equipment out and the way that we're bringing it back is significantly different. I think it's better, but it does cost a little more. Increased board worker numbers for each polling place to prevent long lines. The Presidential Commission on Election Administration recommends a 30-minute wait or less. Our personal target in Shawnee County, we've mentioned to you before, is 15 minutes or less. We think if we can keep it to 15 minutes 90% of the time, that there will be a few occasions when it may be up to 30, but we really don't want to get to that 30-minute waiting period. Increased use of advanced voting in person, again, tends to drive the cost up. I think we'll see even more of that. I've had many, many people tell me they'll never use the mail ballot again. They will always vote in the office. And the county mainframe election management system, the rebuild is underway but is not finished yet. We were not able to use the election management system that we used for many years as a result of that mainframe being taken down. So I'm hopeful that that is done this year in a time frame that we can use it. Opportunities for cost saving are currently being explored. Like I told you, I believe that we are probably one of the more efficient departments in county government. Nevertheless, never say never. If we can find a better way to do it, we will. We're currently researching options. Commissioner Bueller requested that we look at staffing level changes. One of the things that we found, though, is that we have already pushed every job humanly possible to minimum wage. Again, part of being efficient is trying to figure out what functions can be done at the minimum wage level and which ones can't. We pushed more jobs than ever to the minimum wage level. That is beginning to put pressure on our ability to find good people to do the work that needs to be done. We're still reviewing processes and procedures for added efficiencies. We've changed some of those processes even between the primary election and the general election. We became a lot more efficient as we get more used to the equipment and the processes. We will continue to find those. State law changes also, the coding of ballots by outside vendors, I think will probably not be successful, but I want to keep looking at that to see if there's a way that we can actually outsource some of those functions, just to see if the cost structure is worth considering. State law changes could make running elections more streamlined. I'll give it a reference to our write-ins. As you know, we spent a lot of staff hours dealing with 11,800 write-ins and building an abstract document. We've improved that process a lot, but that continues to take a lot of time. We will continue to explore other options. Risk factors for increased costs at the election office. I think unforeseen countywide special elections are always a risk that can drive costs up in the office. New federal, state laws and court decisions, or overtime for staff required by new legal decisions or directives that we get. Let's see. My pledge to commissioners, I will always try to communicate with you as timely as possible. That's what I've tried to do with the 16 and 17 budget numbers. If I see an issue or complication on the horizon, I will try to let you know about it as early as possible. We will save every dollar that we can. Like I told you, we're taking steps, and we've told Betty I'm going to meet with her monthly to go through the numbers and to try to find ways to be more efficient and change processes. We will comply with federal, state, county laws and policies. We will always attempt to try to find the most efficient way to run elections in a fair and just manner. And I will always be available for a phone call if you have questions about anything 24 hours a day. And again, I want to give a public thank you to the commissioners. I think you have been a good partner as it relates to many of the things that we've talked about today, taking care of the issues that we found in 12 and 13 and 14. And the poll pad has been a major part of that. 24-year-old equipment that fails at the wrong time has also been something that I know is expensive. I will grant you, elections are expensive. Absolutely correct. I think the key thing for us going forward is to communicate and work together on trying to make sure that we're all working together at getting where we need to go. And that's my pledge to you, is to be a partner in running elections correctly in Shawnee County. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Commissioner?
No.
Andrew, thanks for the presentation. And it might be helpful to get a copy of this,
Yes.
So we can take a look at the numbers
Certainly.
as well. And I applaud you and the staff. I mean, there has been a lot of change, and there has been a lot of improvements for elections office. But I think what's somewhat confusing is we're working with different numbers. You have your certified budget, we have our certified budget. The public doesn't know how much we're spending on elections. And so therein lies the concern, I think for me, is that you're over on 2016, but I don't sense a consensus to be under for 17, and be under what number, your number or the number set by the commission. So that's a concern. I think from this commission, and then again for the public, do we have a certified amount from the commissioner, elections commissioner, or what we certify in August? That's confusing. And so
I
we
think
have
the
to-
law is pretty clear. In my opinion, the law is quite clear that the county commission shall include it in the budget. I've showed you
And
the
that's-
statute.
And that's where, I know this is under the financial report. We may need to put it on for another commission meeting and have further discussion and hear from our legal.
I can discuss that statute today.
I
If
would
you want to.
love to hear that.
Thank you.
Yes, is there anything else?
No.
Commissioner? Yeah, and I'd like the county councilor to come up. I guess in looking at some of the numbers, the thing one of the concerns I had was the overtime report. I guess I don't understand, and I know there's crunch time. There's, probably 30 to 60 days out of the year where the elections office is extremely busy. But my constituents ask me, what does the elections office do for 330 days out of the year? Do you have a good answer for that?
Certainly.
Okay.
We handle registrations. I think there's 56 or 58 different registration statuses within the election system that we have to manage. So every day we get the registration changes in of some form or another that have to be handled correctly. And frankly, that's gotten a little bit more time-consuming as it relates to making sure that the documents are there related to all of the new requirements of the law since 2012. So we haven't increased staff, but we are still doing the same work and then some as it relates to registration changes, DMV. Jeanette, do you want to talk about that for just a second? It's probably just as easy for you to talk about some of those different categories because we do a lot of registration work and then frankly catching up on all the work that we couldn't do during that specific election season. But I'll just have Jeanette talk to you for 1 second about some of the things that we do during the off-season.
There's over 110,000 registered voters, and we are continually updating their voter registration application, and people transfer and pass away, and also all the new rules and the laws for the citizenship and filling out the federal form. Before, frankly, before it was quite a lot easier to put on registrations because you were not looking for all these special rules about people being grandfathered in for their citizenship. Also, before the election, we always have to certified registration totals of how many people are registered. And with the new law, we had to include all of these suspense voters. And before, when we ran a report, we would simply click a few buttons and print it, and we would get the total, how many certified totals. And now a template had to be built. My assistant, Jay, spent numerous hours setting up a template just to be able to do the certified totals. And so also there was a lot of extra work. We had to send out letters for all these people that at the last minute, now they were able to vote for the November general election. And so we had to change all the codes in the computer. And then we had to send letters out to notify people, you know, where they can go to vote. And we had voter registration drives at the library to let people know so they could come and register. And we also had the equipment there so people could go ahead and view the equipment. And so that's overtime for, we had experts that came, technical experts that helped, plus one permanent staff member. And so that included overtime for the permanent staff member because that was during the election season. We wanted to do that so people would be able to view our new equipment and get registered. And so that is even a real busy time. We're trying to even mail out ballots that same time frame.
Thank you. I guess I was looking at the overtime report, and I see one employee that was paid over $16,000 in overtime, another that was paid $9,665 in overtime, another employee that was paid $23,000 in overtime, total overtime expenditure $114,766. That just seems incredibly high to me.
You won't get any disagreement from me that we spend a lot of overtime running an election. There's no question about it. But part of what, at Commissioner Bueller's request, we're researching is, I think we know the answer, but we're going to keep looking at it. It is cheaper for the county to hire in a major election somebody at overtime than it is to put somebody on full-time salary and keep them on staff when you don't need them quite as much the other half of the time. So, yeah, it's significant overtime, but frankly, that's how every large county does it. I don't like it because it makes it difficult to keep good people because you wear them out. I will promise you, every one of the staff people that do that would love to go home at 5 or 6 p.m. They don't do it for the overtime. They do it because it's a job that has to be done.
Okay. County Councilor. Thank you. Yeah, if we look at the statute, it seems to me it's just open-ended. That if the elections commissioner wanted another 500,000, another million, I mean, that would be certified, and they could say, well, that's my certified budget. Where does that leave us? What can we do to bring some certainty and some sanity to how we budget for the elections office?
Thank you, Commissioner. Jim Kraut, Shawnee County Councilor. Let's discuss the statute. And Commissioner Cook will appreciate this. At one time or another, almost every attorney likes to imagine himself or herself as a judge. Mm-hmm. Today, I'll imagine myself as law professor, and we'll discuss this statute, because I think what's been advanced by the election commissioner is probably a more recent interpretation that doesn't take the entire statute into account, and let's discuss that.
I was gonna pull my stick for you, Jim. so
Thank
could-
you, I appreciate
Put it
that.
in.
I don't know if we have.
But there's a
enough
battle
room.
of sticks here. There you go, sir.
I don't have a fancy presentation, I just have one page, which will be the statute. If I can find it. Because I thought that we might get into this. All right. See if I can enlarge this. That's maybe too much. Same statute that we were discussing before. I'm going to go down to the relevant subsection. Let me shrink this down so we can get all the words on one page. In every discussion I've had with the election commissioner or representatives of the Secretary of State's office, this bottom highlighted clause is what's emphasized, which is the one that says the county commissioners, well, Betty, I need technical support here. Let's try that. Which is the one that says the county commissioner shall cause the same to be included in the county budget for such ensuing budget year. Ignoring that there's two shalls, and ignoring that there's more in this first shall than what's being given credit for. The election commissioner shall certify to the Board of County Commissioners an itemized statement showing the amount necessary. And that word necessary is important because it is in every statute dealing with county elected officials. It's always the bottom line issue when it comes to budgeting, and that is you're required under the law to budget what is necessary to allow an elected official to perform the statutory functions that they have. Okay? Now, amount necessary isn't an amount it's not an estimate. It's not a wish list of everything I'd like to have. It's an initial determination under the statute by the election commissioner. Here's what I think is necessary. Nowhere in this statute does it say that the election commissioner is the only person who gets to make the decision as to what is necessary. And in every other circumstances of county government, it is the Board of County Commissioners who is the elected representative of the taxpayers of this county who makes that decision during the budget season. We all go through this budgetary process as to what is necessary. So I would ask you to resist an interpretation that I think is recent. As you pointed out, Commissioner Cook, we haven't had this issue before. We didn't have it in 12, 13, 14, 15. For one reason or another, we're now getting this interpretation that is trying to suggest that only the election commissioner is the one who determines what is necessary for his budget. And so that the public is aware of who the election commissioner is. The election commissioner is an appointed official, appointed by the Secretary of State's office, not appointed by the county, is not an elected official, not elected by the taxpayers of this county. And again, I would ask you to resist an interpretation that would delegate to an appointed official that cannot be voted on by county residents, that cannot be removed by the Board of County Commissioners, delegate to one person the ability to set their budget and spend the money. Because I think that is a radical notion that you find nowhere else in county government. I think we stick with an interpretation that we use with all county elected officials, and that is this Board of County Commissioners is required to fund what is necessary. And only what is necessary, not a wish list, not everything that I'd love to do this year, but to work together to arrive at an amount, which is the process that we do. We're getting ready to embark on that process for 2018. It is a very long process. There are hours of meetings, and any member of the public can go online and view these budget hearings, where we go into the details of these things. The commission does not just pull an arbitrary number out of the hat and assign it to a particular department. So I think I'll conclude my remarks, but I just, when someone says the statute is clear, I think that it is not clear at all in the respect that is being, the interpretation that's been pushed by the election commissioner today. And I would just state that it's my opinion that it's completely the opposite. And this statute's more similar to what we have with other elected officials than different. A little different formulation, but the effect is the same legally.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Cook.
Thank you, Jim. In your time working with the county counselor's office and working with Shawnee County, has there ever been a presentation or maybe a difference of opinion regarding this statute with the elections commissioner presented?
The only time that I've heard of this is only very recently.
Okay. And so when we say that I'm focusing in on the word necessary, which is what you've kind of drawn our attention to, is the amount necessary. So if a department head or an elected official submits a budget, it usually includes more than what they expect to get, things that they would like to do with their office should the abilities arrive, but not a bare-bones, scaled-down, minimalistic view of their budget. Is that accurate?
Yeah, of course that's accurate, and it's this commission's job to take all of these requests and prioritize the spending for the public.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bueller.
I don't have any. Thank you. Anything else?
Nothing. Thank you, Jim. I think this has been a helpful discussion for the public and for us, and I think it demonstrates how seriously we take this process of budgeting and allocating funds, taxpayer funds, and I appreciate your thoughts that, yeah, the elections commissioner is appointed. He's not accountable to the taxpayers as we are, and that's critical to remember that. I'm sure we'll have further discussions on this issue, but I think we've talked enough about it for today. Next item, please.
Administrative communications.
There's not a need, so we, sorry. Sorry about that.
No problem. Les Crooks, Kansas Expo Center, in the words of the comedy troupe Monty Python, and now for something completely different. So, very busy weekend coming up at the Expo Center. Lots of activity with the Arab Shrine Circus, 6 performances that are open to the public starting Friday evening. The RV and Sports Show is in the exhibition hall. That opens on Friday through Sunday, and also Friday through Sunday in the Ag Hall is the Capitol Cycle Show. So,
thank you, Les. Anyone else for administrative communications? Next item, please.
Executive session.
There's not a need, so we are adjourned. Thank you.